Umoja Tuchashinda.
Umoja, Ujamaa, Uhuru.
Will everyone please stand for the reciting of the Black Christian National Creed and a prayer of
I believe that human society stands under judgment of one God, revealed to all and known by many names. His creative power is visible in the mysteries of the universe, in the revolutionary Holy Spirit, which will not long permit man to endure injustice, nor to wear the shackles of bondage, in the rage of the powers, when they struggle to be free, and in the violence and conflict, which even now threatens to level the hills and mountains. I believe that Jesus, the Black Messiah, was a revolutionary leader sent by God to rebuild the Black nation of Israel and to liberate Black people from powerlessness and from the oppression, brutality, and exploitation of the white Gentile world. I believe that the revolutionary spirit of God, embodied in the Black Messiah, is born anew in each generation, and that Black Christian nationalists constitute the living remnant of God's chosen people in this day, and are charged by Him with responsibility for the liberation of Black people. I believe that both my survival and my salvation depend upon my willingness to reject individualism, and so I commit my life to the liberation struggle of Black people and accept the values, ethics, morals, and program of the Black nation, defined by that struggle and taught by the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church.
prayer and invocation. Almighty God of Black Nation, once again, we thank you for allowing us to be to attend this Black Theology Bible class. We pray that the words that we hear, we will be able to use and become better Black Christian nationalists as we do your will here on earth. Pray these and our blessings in the name of the revolutionary Black Messiah, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I would like to present our teacher today, Brother Shingai, who will be speaking on Judges.
All right.
Okay, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, it's quite a bit to cover today, so start with turning to your bulletin to the introduction. The Black nation Israel during the period of Judges failed to live as a unified people of God, grounded in the covenant and the law. The book of Judges highlights the destructive nature of individualism upon the group/nation and their indifference to the covenant. And I want everybody to repeat after me with Judges 21:25. In those days, there was
No king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Repeat that, please.
In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Now, during the time of Judges, the Black nation Israel experienced trouble because everyone became his own authority and acted on his own opinions of right and wrong. This mindset produced horrendous results, and the Black nation Israel continued to do it. It's a form of insanity, a clinical form of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Right? Today, and I submit to you, I like using Bishop Mwenda to say, our world is similar. Individuals, groups, and societies have made themselves the final authorities without reference to God. When people selfishly satisfy their personal desires at all costs, everyone pays the price. Individualism is described by the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church. It's sometimes used, and for some people it might be a harsh word, it's called the beast within.
Well,
That's the negative inner self. In the PAOCC, we define individualism as a behavior that is developed by an oppressed group that emphasizes the importance of the individual over the interests of the group in which you're a part of. Now, I'm going to give you an example of individualism, and this has to do with the black church supporting Donald Trump. There's a church called Antioch Road to Glory, International Ministries in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the minister says, his name is Pastor Thomas Rogers, and I got this out of the Charlotte Observer, is that praises and support of Donald Trump. This is what we feel in our heart of hearts is the right thing for us to do. So we're moving forward on that. Rogers said that the Democrats made African Americans reliant on government handouts, which led to our moral decay. The blame is on the black community, allowing it to happen, calling his fellow African Americans ignorant people. Then there's Reverend James David Manning, chief pastor at ATLAH World Missionary Church on 123rd Street in New York City. And he says the best thing the Lord ever did for the planet, and I'm not talking about Jesus, is Trump.
Have mercy.
That Trump is the black man's hero. Now, Manning is, again, he's one of the pastors of the 100 pastors that met with Trump during last year's pastoral summit. There's also Joel Osteen. There's Paula White. And while they're not African Americans, they have large African American, or predominantly African American congregations. Judges 21:25. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. The blatant rejection of their covenant relationship caused them to forfeit the promises of God. The black nation Israel underwent an ongoing cycle of sin, oppression, and deliverance. This is where the insanity part comes in. They kept, throughout the entire book, they kept repeating the same mistake over and over and over. This repetitive cycle was interrupted by the rise of various judges. The judges rose to deliver various tribes from oppression. This took place either through military action or judging legal disputes.
Have mercy.
The black nation Israel never completely conquered the land of Canaan during the conquest of Joshua or during the period of Judges. The Canaanites remained in the land. Their culture and religion were soon adopted by the black nation Israel. As we read on, although the Canaanite population may have diminished a bit, the Israelites nevertheless had to settle down in their midst. Moreover, we must remember that the tribal confederacy had been formed at Shechem in the very heart of the Canaanite culture, and it embraced new converts who previously had been worshiping the strange gods of the pre-Mosaic period. And the Mosaic law simply is that God is first. God is, we have a jealous God. A God of the covenant, should have no other God before me. This was the laws of Moses. The very diversity of the Israelite Confederacy undoubtedly made a relapse from the stern demands of the Mosaic law. This comes from Bernard W. Anderson, as you see in there. And again, we see the cycle. It was the lack of unity, internal weakness, and other religious cultures in the area that contributed to their general state of chaos and led them into the repetitive cycle of oppression, sin, and deliverance. Somebody read, go to Judges 3:5-6. Judges 3, 5 through 6.
And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, and Amorites, and Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their daughters to their sons, and served their gods.
The black nation Israel discovered that relationships affect faith. The men and women of the surrounding nations were attracted to the black nation Israel.
Well,
Soon they intermarried, and Israelites accepted the pagan gods into their homes. The Israelites gradually began to accept the immoral practices associated with them. Now, most Israelites didn't start out determined to be idolaters. They just added to the idols to the worship of God. But before long, they found themselves absorbed in pagan worship. A similar danger faces us. We want to befriend those who don't know the Lord, but through these friendships, we can become entangled in the unhealthy practices. Friendships with unbelievers are important. I don't want to get that wrong. That's important. Our people, bringing our people in and communicating with our people is always important. But we must accept people without compromising or adapting their patterns of behavior. If I'm here preaching, I can't go to a strip bar. I can't hang out in bars. I can't have a whole lot of women. These are morals, that standards that I have to have as a man, and I'm going to use myself. I'm going to use myself.
Come on.
We want to remember what Jesus says, that we're in the world, but we're not of the world.
All right.
Teach, brother.
Moving on, minor judges and major judges. Got Abimelech, Shamgar, Tola, Jair, Ibzam, Elon, and Abdon. Now, if you're wondering what is the difference between a minor judge and a major judge, all I can come up with seems to be a lack of information or text in the Bible.
Well,
Like now, I'm going to go through some of them, at least the minor ones. We can't cover all of the judges. The important thing to know is that God chose them and they answered the call to judge. There was Shamgar. And he once killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. It's like a herder's stick with a sharp point on it. And his judging is unrecorded. There is no recording. He's got one sentence, but he was the judge. There's Tola, and he judged Israel for 23 years and was a descendant of Dudu. Or whoever that was. That's Judges 10, 1, 2. Then there's Jair. He had 30 sons who owned 30 towns in the land of Gilead. He judged the black nation Israel for 22 years. Judges 10, 3 through 5. And that's basically all the information it has on them. Then there's Abdon. He judged for 8 years, and he had 40 sons and 30 grandsons. Each of whom had his own donkey. Now, I didn't get that. He had his own donkey, so I guess back at that time, having your own donkey was very important. And that comes from Judges 12, 13 through 15. So basically, what I got out of it, unless there's some extra, we have some theologians that are in here that know a lot more about me. That was the only information I had on it.
Major.
The story, and then we get to the story of Deborah. And that's the one we're going to cover with this morning. The story, and Deborah is a major judge. The story of Deborah, it was faith in the covenant and God that raised the spirit of Deborah, which was evident in her judgeship that delivered the black nation Israel from a pitiful state of helplessness and despair to a temporary time of peace and independence. Deborah was an inspirational prophetess and judge during a phase of the black nation Israel's history as a tribal confederacy. Each tribe had its own separate existence with a sense of national unity. The United States, the white man, when they were 13 colonies, they're similar. Every colony basically did what they wanted to do. They would come together to fight against the British, but basically the colonies told, I do this. They were not the United States of America, and that's the best of the analogy that I could come up with when I was let's see. Deborah organized a holy army for the Lord. She summoned Barak and appointed him as general of the army.
Wow.
She instructed him to organize a group of 10,000 to fight against the Canaanites. And Deborah's army was joined by 6 other tribes: Ephraim, Benjamin, Manasseh, Zebulun, Issachar, and Naphtali.
Well,
Now, the story, Deborah's story could be titled, and I just gave this title, The General is a Black Woman.
well,
Somebody read Judges 4:9.
Preach, brother, tell me that.
The General is a Black Woman. Judges 4:9, verse 9.
She said, I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the journey that you take won't be your honor, but Yahweh will sell Sisera into a woman's hand. Deborah rose and went with Barak to Kadesh.
Okay. Those are the words of the prophetess named Deborah, talking to a general named Barak. Deborah has just passed along the orders of God's orders to Barak. She assembled 10,000 fighters at Mount Tabor, and you'll defeat them invading chariot corps by the Canaanites named Sisera. Somebody read Judges 4 and 8. Judges 4 verse 8.
Barak answered her, if you come with me, I will go. If you will not come, I will not go.
My Lord.
For if I do not know how to choose the day when the angel of Yahweh will grant me success, I will go with you then, said she, but the way you are going about it, the glory will not be yours. For Yahweh will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman.
my Lord.
Deborah was not a soldier.
Okay.
But she's a wife and a prophetess who was judging Israel at that time. Judges 4:4-5 says she would sit under the palm of Deborah, and the Israelites would go to her for judgments. Now, this is so important because the status of women in the ancient world makes Deborah's accomplishments even more outstanding.
Well,
In the ancient world,
right, brother.
women were treated as second-class citizens.
my Lord.
Boy babies were regarded as a sign of God's favor as opposed to girl babies.
Well,
Men avoided speaking to women in public, even their own woman, because the tradition taught that a woman's voice was sexual enticement. This is in the Talmud. Women were not permitted to read from the Torah during the prayer services because of the dignity of the congregation. Women were not even permitted to pray out loud at their own tables.
well,
This comes from, well, I got to get my reference. And then somebody go to and read 1 Corinthians 14:34-35. And this is some centuries later. 1 Corinthians 14:34-35.
Read it for us.
1 Corinthians 14:34-35.
Read it.
For if I pray in an unknown tongue, my spirit,
14-35?
35, hold on.
I mean, excuse me, 14:34-35.
Okay.
1 Corinthians.
Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak. But they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the Lord. And if they still learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home. For it is a shame for women to speak in the church.
Now that's the Apostle Paul. I just wanted to throw that in there, right? That's just me being you know, and he's the one that says you don't want the law, you don't believe in the law, but he sure kept that one. Yet, despite all of that, going back, yet Deborah agrees to go, vowing that a woman will earn the battlefield praise. Now, King Jabin of the Canaanite city of Hazor hears about Deborah's gathering of her militia. So he orders his general, Sisera, to take the army of 900 iron chariots down to crush the uprising. Now, this is important because the Canaanites were already dealing with iron, and the Israelites' weapons were basically made of bronze. So that's a major technological advance in the ancient world. But didn't scare Deborah at all. Deborah orders Barak to attack, and 10,000 screaming Israelites charge and routs Sisera and his chariots, killing all of his men. The enemy general Sisera runs to and keeps running until he comes to a lone herder's camp, probably miles away. Only the herder's wife, Jael, is there to greet him.
Well,
Sisera asks Jael to hide him and to give him drink. So Jael, oh, you like that too? So Jael hides him and offers him milk, which acts as a sedative for an exhausted warrior on the run. Then when Sisera, now I want to be correct, Sisera falls asleep, she drives a tent peg into the side of his head.
oh, wow, my Lord.
And with that, we go back to Deborah's prophecy. Deborah's prophecy is fulfilled. One woman started the battle, and another woman finished it.
Well, now.
Now, how did Deborah command such respect? We can say that she was open and obedient to the will of God. She assumed responsibility for her people. She influenced them to live for God. Her main responsibility as a prophetess was to encourage people to obey God.
Well,
Her personality drew people and drew people together and commanded even the respect of Barak, a military general. Now, part of Deborah's strength was she was charismatic. And charisma, it goes a long ways. I did, when I was in Toastmasters, I did some research between Dr. King and Dr. Abernathy. And the research found that they almost exactly the same. If you were to take their profiles, they're both identical. Both of them graduated from a black college. Both of them were ministers. They both had equal responsibilities in the SCLC and all the things they do. They both had went to jail 43 and 42 times. They both were leaders. Yet, today, one, outside of Fulton County, most people won't even know who Reverend David Abernathy is, while Dr. King is known all over the world. Dr. King has a national holiday. So, and I use that analogy just to say how important charisma and personality is. And it can be corruptible. It can be very corruptible. Think about it. Hitler had charisma.
well,
Donald Trump, whether you do not, like most of us do not like, you got to give it to him. He's got charisma. He's going to influence a certain amount of people. Now, she was a godly woman, so she influenced people, if you do have some charisma, to influence people to do God's will.
well, all right, brother.
And in the end, God is the limitless field of cosmic energy and creative intelligence,
Well,
out of which all things are created, and within which all things exist. God is not a big white man sitting on the throne of grace, holding a book with everyone's name in it, waiting for each one to enter into heaven.
that's right.
God is the force that exists everywhere.
That's right.
A force existing in all things, which can be used by people who have enough sense to know that it is out there. And we have we here in the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church have the religious fellowship in which we can hyphenate, in which we can bring you to the experience of God.
Well, amen.
So,
Amen.
Tell it.
That's
That's good.
All right.
That's great.
Okay.
All right, brother. Thanks for having me.
Once again, we want to thank Brother Shingai for that powerful message about judges. Will everyone please, after the Bible class, everyone please join us in morning worship service downstairs.
All
Would
right.
everyone please stand for a prayer of benediction? Almighty God of Black Nation, we truly want to thank you for the message that we received this morning. We hoping that it infuses us so that we can become better Black Christian nationalists, better Africans doing thy will here on earth. We pray these and our blessings in the name of the revolutionary Black Messiah, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.